5 Liberal MPs are asking universities across Canada about their plans to protect Jewish students. In a letter to 25 university presidents, they write, "Since October 7th, we have seen gunshots fired at Jewish schools, fire bombings at Jewish institutions, threats of boycott against Jewish-owned businesses, and reports across the country of Jewish students feeling unsafe on their campuses." For more on what these MPs are calling for, one of the signatories, Liberal MP Anthony Housefather, joins me from his riding in Montreal. Mr. Housefather, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much, David.
What is it you're seeing on campuses or hearing from students that motivated this letter?
So anti-Semitism was already growing at epidemic proportions in Canada. Jews make up about 1.4% of Canada's population and yet are the subject of over 50% of religiously based hate crimes. And even before October the 7th, when Hamas started a war against Israel, we had a lot of issues with Jewish students on campus. But since then, it's grown exponentially. And literally every day, I get contacted by Jewish students at McGill, at Concordia, at Université de Montréal, nearby, and even across the country, telling me that they feel unsafe on campus, that they are being, receiving anti-Semitic insults from fellow students, that they're being discriminated against by teachers, that the administration is not taking any effective steps to protect them. I spent a lot of time talking to these students. I even brought the Prime Minister to my riding to talk to students. And at this point, I felt that we needed to really do something more, which is why I asked the Justice Committee to study anti-Semitism, including on campus. And my colleagues and I, David Lametti, Marco Mendicino, Carr and I, Gainey and I, wrote this letter to the 25 biggest Canadian universities, asking what they're doing and asking for a written response that we would table with the committee.
Your letter, though, calls out a lack of action by university leadership to protect Jewish students. How are they falling short, and what specific actions do you want to see?
Yeah, I mean, we get contacted constantly by Jewish students, by Hillel chapters. Hillel is the Jewish organization that is charged generally in most big universities with representing Jewish students, to say that they make reports, to the university administration of actions that have been taken against Jewish students, harassment, etc., both in class and outside of class, and that no action has been taken. That calls for genocide against Jews, are sort of buried away in various chants that are being made at university, that call for the eradication of the state of Israel, making these students feel that they need to walk through these demonstrations to get to class because they're happening right in the middle of the university. Right. There's all kinds of complaints that we're getting, and university administrators have been slow to take action. And I think that's a general perception where it's not only the Jewish students, but Jewish faculty and Jewish staff at the universities have contacted me as well, to say that they feel uncomfortable. Right. And then you also get parents. For example, one rabbi's wife in Montreal is accompanying students to classes at night because they feel unsafe getting there. That just is not normal in our society.
No, I certainly know a Jewish family here in Ottawa, and their kids have been harassed in high school. They're not at university, but this is happening. But the chants you talk about, I'm assuming this is the "from the river to the sea" chant. That is such a flashpoint.
Or Antifada. Antifada means killing civilians. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Whether the people chanting it know it or not, is a chant that is intended to say that Israel should be eradicated from the earth. I mean, and the group Hamas that that propagates that chant, essentially, is a group that calls for the eradication not only of Israel but of Jews. So for Jewish students who feel a closeness to the state of Israel, who have relatives, friends, a connection to our biblical homeland, it's deeply hurtful to have to walk through that to get to class. Now, it doesn't mean that people, can't be chanting that off in the park if they want to, but I don't think it crosses necessarily a criminal code line, but it's certainly something that you wouldn't want to have to experience in your daily life on campus. Right. Nor would it be to be called a Zionist pig or when you express support for Israel. Neither of those are acceptable on a university campus.
So I want to raise a different interpretation of that chant, and this is not me making the argument. I want to make that very clear. We spoke with Mona Abu-Amara on the show last night, who is the Palestinian Authority General Representative to Canada, and her argument is that this phrase has kind of evolved in its purpose to be about having rights and freedom in the area, from the river to the sea. So, and that some of the people chanting it aren't calling for the eradication of Israel, but more of a liberation of the Palestinian people. So how do we reconcile those two vastly different interpretations in your view?
So let's look at it from this perspective. As a Jewish person, knowing the origins of the chant and knowing what the chant, just by the words, the plain face of those words, from the river to the sea, means there is no Israel, right? So a Jewish student knowing that the group that started the chant wants to eliminate Israel and all Jews, hearing the chant that says that there should be no Israel and the Jews should somehow disappear from the map in that area, what is the Jewish person who hears that chant supposed to think?
Yeah.
And why should they have to be exposed to that in the middle of the university? It's like saying some other racist, defamatory slogan somehow it changed around in the popular culture in some group to mean something else. It doesn't mean that the group that is impacted by it should have to tolerate it. It's so discourteous to say that, well, we know how horrible the chant originally was, but now it means something else to some of us, so we can go and chant it in your face. That it's inappropriate, it's horrible, and again, please demonstrate for the people of Gaza, demonstrate for a free Palestine, demonstrate for a two-state solution, whatever you want to do, but you don't need to use chants that hurt the other group when you chant them.
The issue of this happening on campus, and as you view it as a call for the genocide of Jews, we saw this play out in the United States in spectacular fashion recently at a parliamentary committee that's cost a university president their job and has others, under intense scrutiny. Where do you want this to go here? Do you see a similar process as to what we saw in the U.S. with people coming to committees and explaining themselves, or do you want sort of an exchange of letters? Well, what are you hoping to see?
Well, they're two separate tracks. The first track is I want to see what university administrations are doing to tackle the anti-Semitism issue, and I want them to tell me whether a call for the genocide of Jews is a violation of the code of conduct of their universities. Mm-hmm. They should be able to say, yes, it is, because the call for genocide of Jews is hate speech in Canada, if done in a public forum. So if any university president answers that letter saying, no, it depends on the context, as the heads of Penn, MIT, and Harvard did, well, then that person is somebody I definitely want to see at committee, and I want to publicly question them about it. So I will use the letters and the responses we get to these letters to determine, in my view, who I want to see as a witness before the Justice Committee, which I very much hope will put aside some meetings to deal with the issue of anti-Semitism on campus. But also the letter, I think, makes these universities aware that there are members of the House of Commons, including a former Attorney General and a former Public Safety Minister, that are very concerned about this issue and want to see action by the universities, and they're not going to get away with just burying it, because we will bring them before a parliamentary committee and we will talk about it.
So going back to this test of calling for the genocide of Jews, and going back to our conversation about the chant, you said in your view, you didn't think it was a criminal code violation. If they want to go chant it in a park, go chant it.
Because I don't think that's a clear, I think genocide, when you say all Jews in the world should be killed, that's a clear call for genocide. When you use a chant that could mean different things to different people, I could argue that it's hateful to my group, but I don't necessarily believe it arises to criminal conduct.
Okay, but would that be something you think should violate a university code of conduct, that particular chant? That's what I'm trying to, yes?
In my view, I do, because of the way the history of that chant and the way that it is framed to the person that's hearing it on the other side. I think universities, as you know, and schools throughout this country don't have to go to the criminal level to say we don't want racist, hateful behavior on our schools. And unfortunately, what many in the Jewish community believe is that anti-Semitism is not treated with the same seriousness that anti-Black racism, anti-gay discrimination, Islamophobia, others are treated, because the people view Jews as white and privileged, and I think that this is a problem. Again, I think there needs to be discussion about what is permitted or what is not permitted. I'm not saying to ban demonstrations. I'm not saying to say you can't have a Palestinian flag, but chants like that, if you're going to do them, to me, shouldn't be on a university campus where Jewish students and others who are pro-Israel need to walk through that space. It's just not right.
Okay, I appreciate those explanations. Look, I've got one more question for you. I know it's been a tough week for you and the Jewish MPs in the Liberal caucus with this vote at the UN. You disagree with it. You stated that immediately. How has it affected things inside the caucus? And I'm assuming you're staying in the Liberal caucus despite your disagreement on this, right? You are not looking to bolt from the party?
Look, I believe that I am one of those 150-something luckiest people to have the ability to influence the government and to be in caucus. And when I disagree, I'm one of those MPs that will actually disagree. Mm-hmm. A fair, whether privately, which is my preference, or publicly if I need to. And I think that my goal is to influence the party to do what it is that I think me and my constituents and others that support that want us to do. And I was very disappointed in the vote at the UN. I don't think it was consistent with the statement that we made with Australia and New Zealand that day, which we had worked on and I was comfortable with, and I said it, and I think I will continue to say that at the United Nations, where Israel is singled out for vilification by many countries at a time when Israel is at war, it is not the appropriate time to shift Canada's traditional position to vote against Israel and call for an immediate ceasefire, which is impractical and completely unfair to Israel, because it would mean Israel would have to lay down arms, and the terrorist group that it's fighting against has no obligations under international law.
Right. Anthony Housefather, Liberal MP, appreciate it as always. Thank you, sir, for coming on today.
Thank you so much, David. Have a great day.
You too, sir.